Can you picture a desert river where no large dams impede the natural flow of waters? Where more than 300 species of birds have been recorded? Where streamside habitat supports an amazing diversity of wildlife? Where generations of people and their families have drawn sustenance, enjoyed its cool waters, and restored their spirit? This is the Gila River in New Mexico, one of the last wild, free-flowing rivers in the Southwest, and we all benefit from it staying that way. But a congressional water bill, the Arizona Water Settlements Act, has provided an incentive for powerful interest to take more water from the Gila than the river can give, threatening the future of this unique place. The future of the Gila River is in our hands. Once, one of the longest desert rivers in the world, the Gila used to flow 650 miles from its headwaters in the Gila National Forest of southwest New Mexico to the confluence with the Colorado River in southwest Arizona. In New Mexico, the Gila remains a wild river, with perennial water and no dams to impede its flow. It persists through drought and counts its floods as revival events, where cottonwoods plant themselves in muddy bogs, and nutrients for aquatic critters are washed downstream, and wildlife habitats are revitalized. But once it reaches Arizona, the Gila becomes a dry riverbed. Excessive water use prevents any flow from reaching the mighty Colorado and desiccates the once lush riparian habitat along nearly 2/3 of its length. The Gila River is a witness to history. Gunslingers, cowboys, and outlaws holed up along the river's banks. Geronimo, fierce defender of his Apache homeland, was born at the headwaters of the Gila. Before nomadic Apaches, cliff dwellers built their homes in the Gila's tributary canyons. Shards of their pottery, the pieces of their lives still abound. Close your eyes. Listen to the river. The voices of those who have come before can still be heard. Amazing ecological treasures are nurtured by the Gila River's natural cycle of flows. It's home to ancient native fish communities that have disappeared from other streams of the lower Colorado River drainage. The Gila River also provides important habitat to the largest populations of breeding riparian birds in the Southwest. But with healthy river systems on their way out, many native species are on the brink of extinction, like endangered loach minnow and spike dace. The Gila River and a few of its tributaries serve as the last remaining refugia for these two native fish.
Well, it's been a good 20 years since we've seen this animal. We were getting ready to list this as extirpated, which means it's locally extinct, no longer found in New Mexico, until this finding here on the beginning of the summer. So this is a huge find for us, and it's a huge find for the snake. You've got a nice, uninhibited, free-flowing river like this, and this is what these snakes require. They're a highly aquatic snake. They need a place to feed, they need a place to hide. So any disturbance in this river can really upset that balance for this snake.
And it's not just wildlife that needs wild rivers. People need them too. The Gila provides unparalleled opportunities for outdoor recreation, nature-based specialty travel, and wilderness experience. The river's headwaters, protected as America's first wilderness area by the legendary naturalist and outdoorsman Aldo Leopold, comprise one of the largest roadless areas in the lower 48 states.
Going back as far as the 1920s, and on numerous occasions since then, people have made the effort to dam up or divert the Gila River in New Mexico. All unsuccessful so far, fortunately. But this free flow of the river favors the native fish over the non-native fish, and that's why the Gila is valuable as a native fish resource. Along with the fishery, which is excellent, there's bird watching and canoeing and other recreational opportunities. And my feeling is, why muck up this pristine river and flow for the sake of a water project that's not needed?
On the Gila, river runners can float beneath sheer hoodoos and through lush vegetation. Birders can observe the variety of its riparian birds, such as the majestic bald eagle and the endangered southwestern willow flycatcher. There aren't many places left where scientists can study healthy river flows and learn about ecological functions, but natural processes can still be observed on the Gila. As a refuge from our hectic world, people can still find solace and peace along the banks of the Gila.
You know, humans can't have certain inner experiences without certain outer experiences. We need the river, we need songbirds, we need the mountains, we need that connection with nature for a sense of awe and wonder, for our sense of spirituality. Sometimes I just come and sit by the river and listen to the river. I mean, that's a great meditation, just sitting and feeling the spaciousness, feeling like you fit in. Lots of people just come and just enjoy being by the river and feeling our connection with nature, our larger self.
People have used the Gila River for thousands of years, but now, a new breed of bureaucrats and politicians are eyeing this last wild Southwest River for water development projects and are making plans to construct large-scale diversions, reservoirs, and pipelines using a federal subsidy under the Arizona Water Settlements Act. These projects could cost $300 million, 2 to 3 times more than the available federal subsidy, leaving taxpayers and water users paying the tab through increased taxes and water rates. But there are other solutions. We don't need to take water from the Gila River to meet our water needs. Plentiful groundwater supplies, if used sustainably, can meet water demand for hundreds of years at a fraction of the cost.
After years of study, the bottom line is clear. A Gila River diversion project is unnecessary. We can use Arizona Water Settlements Act funding to implement non-diversion alternatives, those measures that wouldn't require us to divert Gila River water and use Gila River water. And this would allow us to keep the natural flow of the Gila River for people and wildlife that depend on healthy river systems. And the vast majority of New Mexicans agree with this approach. New Mexicans want to see the state's rivers preserved and protected for future generations, for wildlife, for recreation.
We all benefit from a free-flowing Gila River. Imperiled fish, birds, and other wildlife need the river's water too, as do people who enjoy refreshment in fishing, birding, rafting, and hiking, or find solitude and connection to nature to rejuvenate the spirit. The future of the Gila River is in our hands. We must balance our need for water with protecting the Gila for generations to come.
We were walking on summer, 5 years old, you know. That's where the beauty lives. River flows, toss your clothes, sink your toes in the mud. That's where the beauty lives. Pouring gold from the mountains of old through the desert. That's where the beauty lives. Watch it trickle, watch it grow, start to rumble, overflow. See past your nose. The two-legged beasts never understood the gold. The blood of your mother is gold.
heard all about the Gila River even when I was living in Catherine County, and had heard that there was going to be a water project on the river. I went out there in the fall of '82 and made a hike upstream and had a good day fishing. Sure didn't want to see it dammed up. The Hooker Dam proposal was still alive, and the Connor Dam proposal was also being discussed, and it was pretty well assumed that within 10, 12 years or so, the Gila was going to have a big dam on it up in New Mexico. I'm one of these so-called redneck environmentalists, which usually refers to a conservation type person who likes to hunt or fish or both. I conjured up the idea of traveling the length of the river, the undammed portion, to see it before it was gone. I was going to hike out the first 50 to 60 miles from the source waters at Bead Spring at 10,500 feet roughly, hike down to the Forks area, and then canoe the rest of the way down into Arizona. I took along one of my hound dogs for company, and as a kind of an afterthought, I brought along my tomcat as well. From the headwaters to the state line on the Gila, it's about 150 miles, and you go through, I think it's 5 life zones, from the Hudsonian zone with Engelmann spruce and blue spruce, down through the Douglas fir and aspen as you lose elevation, and then that would be, I guess, the Canadian zone, and then the transition zone with ponderosa pine and certain kinds of oak trees, and then the upper Sonoran zone with the pinon and juniper, and the lower Sonoran zone, which is cactus and mesquite and ocotillo and so forth. My father was an outdoorsy kind of guy. He was a World War II hero of sorts. I mean, he was on Guadalcanal and Iwo Jima, and got 2 Bronze Stars and a Silver Star, and I kind of worshipped him. If he thought fishing was okay, I was going to be a fisherman. And if he thought hunting was okay, then I was going to hunt. So that's where I kind of got hooked that way. And as I grew older, I realized I really did like it. I learned certain things as a kid growing up. I think that any good hunter or fisherman learns, like leave some for seed and protect the habitat and so forth. I'm a fly fisherman part-time and a bait fisherman part-time and a spin fisherman part-time. With a variety of fish in the Gila, there are places where all 3 kinds of fishing are readily available. I probably do more fly fishing than anything, but I'm not too proud to catch catfish and carp on bait. I'm not only interested in the natural history of the Gila, but the human history as well. Possibly the most interesting people that inhabited the Gila were the so-called Mimbres people, or the Mogollon culture, because of the artwork they left behind. They had quite a story to tell, and they told that story in their pottery and the artwork they left on that pottery. In the Gila, there's no portage trail, and there's no real guidebook to running it. So you gotta pick your spots and recognize danger as it comes along the way. And it's a little more tricky when you got a dog and a cat to take care of, because you don't want to lose either one of them. I think I did pretty well, because in 150 miles of passage from Grapevine to Safford, Arizona, I only rolled it once. I had one wreck. I had everything tied down good. I didn't lose anything. The animals bailed out and swam ashore, and I swam the boat ashore. And it shook me up a little bit, but the river was full of fish at that time. I caught fish on the backpacking trip, and I really caught fish on the canoe trip. I caught them on rod and reel, with lures, with flies, with bait. I caught smallmouth bass, 2 kinds of catfish, channel cats and flatheads. I put out a trot line at night and invariably had a fish or 2 on the line in the morning, kind of like Huckfin and Jim. That's how they fed themselves going down the river. And I kind of wanted to do the same thing. Well, we went down through the wilderness run. You come to a narrow area below the bird area called the Gila Middle Box. And this is where they planned to put the dam, the Connor Dam, that was going to mess everything up. And was the reason I took the trip. But the Middle Box is what I call a de facto wilderness area. Thank goodness they didn't put the Connor Dam down in there. It's one of the most inaccessible places in the Gila. A wonderful place to explore. Okay. It took a year or 2 for this to happen, but they had been promoting the Hooker Dam, which is a dam site, a proposed dam site about 1.5 miles upstream from Mogollon Creek confluence, near the present-day gauge station. But that proposed site was losing favor due to public opposition, because it would have backed water into the Gila wilderness, and cost problems. I heard always that there were geological problems with the site, that it might not be safe for a holding dam. So about 82, 83, they began to focus on the Connor Dam down in the Middle Box. And I got in the middle of that, and for 5-6 years, whereas nobody before was there at the meetings to throw a wrench and ask questions, we started doing that. It was a real scrap. The Bureau of Reclamation eventually abandoned the site because of conflicts with endangered minnows and other ESA species, T&E species, public opposition, cost-benefit analysis. As it happens, the Bureau of Reclamation at that time had an honest project planner. He told the Commissioner of Reclamation, this project is a dog. We can't support it. It's not necessary. It's too expensive. It's got environmental problems. People are up in arms about it. Everything was quiet for 10 or 12 years. And then about 2003, New Mexico glommed on to the Arizona Water Settlements Act. There was the option of New Mexico taking 14,000 acre-feet under certain conditions from the river for consumptive use in New Mexico. They're trying for a way to divert the 14,000 acre-feet out of the river and store it in a side canyon, and from there eventually pump it over the Continental Divide to whoever might want to buy it. Silver City, Deming, Las Cruces, Texas. So we're dealing with a whole new proposal now. They say that the Gila is the only renewable water resource in the area, but west of the Continental Divide, where consumptive water use is limited to about 30,000 acre-feet a year, we're not using 30,000 acre-feet a year. And we've got water rights lying fallow. So it's hard to conjure up a need when you've got 3,000 or 4,000 acre-feet of water that's not being used. East of the Continental Divide, you've got the Mimbres Basin, which is probably the supreme underground water basin left in New Mexico. Deming makes use of it, Silver City makes use of it, the mining companies make use of it. Altogether, they have hardly put a dent in it. With that available resource, some cooperation from the state engineer and some conservation measures, we have sustainable water use in the area right now. It's hard to alter or get rid of an old paradigm. When people first came west, they needed to settle the West, and they couldn't settle the West until they harnessed the water, the rare water resources that we have in the West. You can't build a town without a well. You can't have a ranch without a windmill. You can't have a city without a water supply or a farm. So it's quite natural that various entities and individuals would want to develop the waters we have for civilization to take a hold in this empty quarter of the West. But like anything else, it doesn't necessarily make sense that if a little is good, a whole lot's better. By 1950, or certainly 1960, the West was settled and populated and functioning and was part of the national fabric. The old paradigm of making use of water in a consumptive way, no beneficial use without consumptive use, had taken a hold in water management in all the western states. So Colorado tries to keep its water from running down into New Mexico. And New Mexico tries to keep its waters from running down into Arizona and Texas. And Texas tries to keep their water from Old Mexico. They all want to keep it on this side of their line for consumptive purposes, farming or municipal use. In recent years, decades, it's been more for municipal use than anything because of the tremendous population booms we've seen in cities like Albuquerque and Phoenix and Denver and so forth. So it's hard to shake people out of that traditional use of water and get them to appreciate what many citizens appreciate, and that's in-stream use. What good is a river that is run dry or that can't support its native wildlife or can't support its traditional recreation of fishing and hunting and river running and so forth? It's a tough fight when you get to dealing with the powers that be, the county commissioners, the state senators, the governors, the agency people. They're all beating the drum for the old cause. When Leopold got to the Southwest in 1910, he said he found 6 regions in New Mexico and Arizona that would qualify as big wilderness areas. By 1920, when he began to take a notion to protect those areas, 5 of them were already gone because they'd been eroded in, or they had power lines or dams, or they were developed. The only area of big wilderness left in the Southwest was the Gila in New Mexico. So that's when he wrote up his article in the Journal of Forestry and then began to lobby it. And in 1924, they set aside about 800,000 acres of the Gila headwaters in New Mexico, and it's still there today. The question is whether the lifeblood of that wilderness, which is the Gila River, is going to get the same consideration. Nobody's creating any new wilderness. We're just protecting some old areas that haven't been touched yet. Sometimes you just have to draw the line. The last county commission meeting, something like 153 people showed up. It used to be we'd get half a dozen people. We're basically saying leave the river alone. Most of our successes in the environmental causes are really marginal successes. They're usually a case of stopping something bad from happening, and we call that a victory. A real success in the environmental movement would be not merely stopping something bad from happening, but initiating something good that happens. That would involve not only stopping the water development on the Gila, but getting some protection for what's left of the river so it doesn't happen again. I've been asked every now and then by a person who thinks otherwise. He finds the environmental people and the environmental movement very frustrating, and they'll say, what drives you people? I say, love of country. And sometimes they get mad. They think that I'm criticizing them as if they don't love their country. And they'll say, well, I love my country. I could practically quote the Declaration of Independence, and I've read the Constitution, and I know all about Lincoln's speeches and so forth. And I say, well, that's all well and good, and that's part of loving your country, but when a conservationist says, I love my country, he means it literally. It means the country itself. The land, the water, the wilderness, and the wildlife, what was here before. Leopold said that wilderness is the raw material out of which we've hammered the artifact we call civilization. So to save a portion of that country is probably the most fundamentally conservative thing you can do. In other words, saving the Gila is a patriotic act. Besides the fact that I don't want to lose my fishing spot. My favorite fishing hole.